there's footage and records of objects in the skies that we don't know exactly what they are. We can't explain how they moved, their trajectory. They did not have an easily explainable pattern.
Imagine a technology that can do 600 to 700 G-forces, that can fly at 13,000 miles an hour, that it can evade radar, and that can fly through air and water and possibly space. And oh, by the way, has no obvious signs of propulsion, no wings, no control surfaces, and yet still can defy the natural effects of Earth's gravity. That's precisely what we're seeing. The government has already stated for the record that they're real. I'm not telling you that. The United States government is telling you that.
These vehicles seem to have unlimited loiter time, which we don't have. Then the acceleration is far beyond anything that we're capable of.
Well, I don't believe they're coming from foreign adversaries. If they were, why, that would suggest that they have a technology which is in a whole different sphere than anything we understand. And frankly, China and Russia just aren't there.
Do we have any sensors underwater to detect on submerged UAPs? Anything that is in the ocean or in the seas?
So I think that would be more appropriately addressed in closed session, sir.
Now, I know what you've seen is what those Navy pilots saw in 2004, and there have been some 300 sightings since then. And I've talked to those pilots, and they know they saw something, and their radars locked onto it. And then all of a sudden it was here on the surface, and then it's there. And they don't know what it is, and we don't know what it is.
Lieutenant Graves told us pilots training off the Atlantic coast see things like that all the time.
Every day. Every day for at least a couple of years.
Wait a minute, every day for a couple of years?
Mm-hmm.
I think some of the phenomena we're going to be seeing continues to be unexplained and might in fact be some type of phenomenon that is the result of something that we don't yet understand and that could involve some type of activity that some might say constitutes a different form of life.
And the main issues that Congress and others have been concerned about are basically safety of flight concerns and counterintelligence issues. But of course, there's always the question of, is there something else that we simply do not understand that might come extraterrestrially?
The immediate concern is very twofold. One, this is a technology that we don't completely understand, and it seems to be defying our understanding of physics. And secondly, whoever's operating it or whoever's behind it, these aerial phenomena, seems to be keenly interested in our military capabilities. You know, there's a tendency for the UAP sightings and developments to occur around military assets, especially, it seems, around our naval assets.
The fact that this is in our airspace and it's real, that's when it becomes compelling and that's when it becomes problematic. The question is, what is it? What are its intentions? What are its capabilities?
Who is out there? Who are we? How did we get here? How did we become as we are? Who am I to say that planet Earth is the only location of a life form that is civilized and organized like ours?
Probably 4,000 feet above us, about maybe 1 kilometer out, horizontal distance above the ground, and it looked like 8 meters total in distance from top to bottom. The top looked like a mushroom, like a big jellyfish. It was very, very, very bright white and vibrating and flashing, like pulsing. there was like 3 flashing panels, like equal distance going down it. I've seen some the last couple of days through a sensor, so I'd seen them before, so it wasn't like awe-shocking, but it was, kind of taken back to be like, oh wow, really am seeing one, with my actual visual eyes, right here, right above me at 4,000 feet. It looked like a jumper under canopy at 4,000 feet, which is the same distance when they pull. So that part is crazy. Then I knew, like, I'm not seeing stuff, there it is. It's the same thing that I've been seeing on sensor. And all the characteristics, were consistent with what a Class 7 should look like.
The Class 7 is a jellyfish. It's not the jellyfish you've seen on TV. It's a different jellyfish. We think the head of the jellyfish is about 2 meters in size. We think the tentacles hanging down are about 3 to 5 meters in size, varying and depending on which one you're looking at. You can see these stills are taken from different jellyfish. You can see this jellyfish, the tentacles look very, very long. On this one, they look shorter compared to the head. As you can see, the nodules on the tentacles light up. And again, this light appears to us to go from head to tail and pulse and light up the nodules as it goes. Also, sometimes it looks like an automaton or something with like an alien movie where it's got like the tail kind of hanging out, like it's seeking something. And sometimes it looks like it's a jellyfish in the sky. It seems to undulate as it moves. We have seen these take direct flight paths. Even yesterday, for the first time, we had 2 in formation. We've never seen that before. We chased down one of those 2, and it deviated its flight path as we approximated, and then it elevated directly straight up, as in directly vertical. So the Class 7 is very hard to image, and at distance, it looks very similar to the Class 6 and also the Class 8 at distance. So what you're going to see is it's kind of, I'll call it swimming in through the sky. There aren't a lot of exotic colors. There is reflectivity. But that color you see right there is very akin to the Class 6 when it's not emitting high energy or whatever it's doing. So when it's not vibrating. So we don't know what that means. And you can kind of start to see now the tentacles hanging down as it moves. In IR, they're very obvious. They're less obvious in EO. So we have multiple indications that this is a real object, that is not man-made, and that it is flying through our airspace and does want to avoid us.
What about places in the United States that house alien bodies? Are you confident in any of those locations?
Probably, by its description, that would probably be Dugway.
Okay.
That'd probably be one of the biggest places, as well as maybe like Fort Detrick, Maryland, wherever there's Battelle and some of Battelle's like biological focused FFRDCs. I can't remember the acronyms right now, but wherever Battelle is located, I would highly believe that these are the places where bodies are stored. Historically, bodies were kept on ice at Wright-Patterson, flown from Roswell, but with the evolution of legacy programs, which is very scary to think about. There are probably laboratories that house deceased non-human biologics.
Are you in touch with anybody who has seen an alien body?
Yeah.
And what do they say about the bodies?
Well,
and are they cryonically frozen, or like these people weren't like abducted? They're like seen in a government context. Like these bodies are being stored.
Retrieval.
Yeah.
What always
or during a crash.
What always comes up is the gray aliens. It's the wraparound eyes, almond-shaped heads, large black eyes, gray, tan, brownish skin. That's
the common
specifically
trope.
In an egg.
Yeah,
in a manned egg that somebody was present for a retrieval for.
So what about not on a retrieval? What about these bodies stored in military facilities?
A place out in California.
Wow,
an unnamed place. A place that doesn't have its own designation. I don't even know who the heck runs it.
Whoa.
Like one of those in plain sight things and corporate.
Can you say where?
I'm not sure exactly where SoCal.
Okay.
SoCal region. Not Antelope Valley, but Antelope Valley probably deals with tech more, but
and you think and do you feel confident in this whistleblower, or not whistleblower, this person who's contacted you?
Yeah. That's the person I would stake my entire rep on.
Can you say anything high level about them, or
they don't want to be talked about?
Okay,
not at all. And I gotta respect that.
Sure. Did you get in touch with them, or did they get in touch with you?
I got in touch with them. This person's a personal hero to me, and I just gotta.
Okay.
If they don't want to be talked about, I must respect.
Well, it's a good sign that you're not. I think you have to be skeptical if somebody inbound hits you up more than if you reach out. to them.
Yeah. 95% of the people I speak to, I have sought them out. That person who I talked to you about that was on a crash retrieval team or claimed they have. I spent a year trying to track them down.
Wow.
And they do not want to be contacted. It takes months and months to form a relationship with these people. I know it's a good sign when I contact them, and I'm usually really upfront with people, and they just say, "How did you get my name? Who are you?" and stop talking to me.
Yeah. Well, it's like they're not denying the claims, and they're clearly like they know they were involved in some crazy shit.
A lot of them are smart, and at first will say like, "I have no knowledge or like what you would expect to find on the terms and conditions on like an agreement for an Apple product.
Yeah.
I have no knowledge of extraterrestrials. I have not seen bodies, nor have I seen craft. I have not been to military installations or disclosed unauthorized disclosures."
Yeah.
Well, so what is a oceanographer and all the different things that you've done for the government, for the Navy, for the country? Why are you focusing on underwater stuff?
Yeah, well, first off, we know we see them in the water too. The last example that I saw was from the USS Omaha off Southern California, a well-known video.
We got a lot of white water up there, so 6-foot swells. Whoa, it's getting close.
Yeah, we have 31 knots sustained wind, topside, gust of 40.
Whoa, splashed. Mark bearing and range.
And there's other examples too. Classified examples I can't talk about, but confirmation that we see these things underwater. And I can tell a story about a submarine officer who came out to me too. This is a good story. So as I've come out, if you will, or I've been speaking out, and I am what I am. I have the scientific background as an authority on these topics of ocean science and exploration. People have looked to me and said, I bet if I tell him, he seems like a straight shooter, a credible guy, I guess. And so a submariner came to me, and virtually and he just said, "Hey, I was on a sub in the 80s. I'd like to talk to you about what I saw." Okay, yeah, let's have a call. I got on a call with him. He was a nuclear submarine officer. Now he's an engineer, and I think for an energy company. And this guy is like most nuclear submariners I know. He is just the facts. He is by the book, very much that way in his personality. And the story he shared with me was this. He's in the North Atlantic in the 80s. Cold War is hot. And their sub's operating, I wouldn't say super deep, but it was very high sea state because of a storm, 40-foot waves, so they were below that. But even there, they were kind of rocking. Subs can feel that wave action. And so because it was so rough, it creates a lot of ambient noise. And in those conditions, it is really hard to passively detect another submarine. So they felt pretty secure. They weren't going to be detected by a Russian sub, and they probably weren't going to hear one either. And so he's on the watch, and all of a sudden, they get a passive hit, a contact that's moving, off the starboard at some range. I don't know the range, but and then it paused and then started closing on them rapidly, and they call that constant bearing, decreasing range. And you don't want that when you're a ship driver or a sub driver. I drove ships, aircraft carriers. I was a deck watch officer. That's going to be a collision. And they had, that was every feature that a Russian torpedo would have in terms of the constant bearing, decreasing range at a very rapid rate. And they were so convinced, he called the captain of the bridge, they set general quarters and they dived. And it kept on coming and it kept on coming, and they were hoping to get below some acoustic lens or whatever that wouldn't be able to find them and lose track, and it just kept coming. And so they went as deep as crush depth, just above it. Crush depth is that depth that a submarine will implode. And that's a dangerous place to be on an older sub like this. But they were convinced this was a Russian sub coming at them. And then at some range close, I don't know what, it paused. And then slowly took station on their stern behind them and trailed them for a while. So they're getting this passive acoustic hit of something doing this. And then after minutes maybe, it just rapidly departed the scene. And they couldn't, there was no explanation. The Russians didn't have technology like that. We didn't have technology like that. And again, to this day, he doesn't know. I want to get that data. The data is collected and archived at Johns Hopkins University. And I'm in the process of reinstating my clearance. And I want to look into that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, we hear about this as we receive new information about a 7-minute encounter between a glowing blue barbell-shaped UFO, half the length of a football field in size. It came from 3 witnesses, including a Pentagon engineering contractor. This happened in southwestern Ontario in August 2013, about 11 years ago. One of the witnesses describing an indigo plasma that covered most of this craft, claiming the craft rotated slowly for about 6 or 7 minutes while emitting an electrical spark-like shower. One witness attempted to film the craft with his camera phone, only to get static when he did, despite the camera working before and after the encounter. So that's the claims here. Now on screen you're seeing a rendition and a sketch of what they saw that day, the shape of what they saw. I mean, they said 6 or 7 minutes it sat there. The craft eventually shot off at, they say, an incredible speed. Robert Powell is a UFO investigator who traveled to meet with the Pentagon contractor, spoke to him firsthand about exactly what he saw, and he joins us now. Robert, thank you so much for coming on. What exactly did you learn when you spoke to this man, and what's new on this story?
Well, the main reason I flew up to meet with the guy is I wanted to verify that he was who he said he was.
Yeah.
I thought it was a very interesting story. Not only did you have 3 witnesses, but the primary witness was an engineer who had contracts with the Pentagon. And what's really interesting is you have an object that's not aerodynamic, right? So if you wanted to make up a story about a UFO, why would you say it looked like a barbell? Right.
Right.
You know,
Doesn't make any sense.
Who's going to believe that?
Yeah. I mean, it's they say they tried to film it and the camera just failed, that they had that, you know, I mean, that's interesting that there would be some kind of technology. It's like a blocker, I guess.
Well, actually, the scientist, I agree with him, is he feels that it was just a byproduct of that blue indigo field around the object. It was not necessarily intentional.
Yeah.
The other thing, he initially turned on his cell phone to try to take a photo. And his cell phone went into a boot up mode, so he couldn't use his cell phone. And so then he took his Sony camera. When he first used it, he turned it on, and it immediately turned off. And what he did next is he began to observe the object through the telescopic view of his hunting rifle he happened to have with him. And then later on, the object moved farther away. And once it moved farther away, he turned his Sony video camera back on.
Wow.
And he could see it through the camera then. The camera stayed on, but the video was scrambled, but you could hear the audio.
It's so crazy to hear these stories, and there's so many of these stories. And again, they come from these credible people. I still remember, you know, hearing on 60 Minutes from these, you know, they're like, you know, naval pilots that have seen things that they just can't explain, and the way it moved. There's no way a trajectory could change like that at that speed. It's amazing to hear. You've got Harvard and Montana Tech scientists hypothesizing that aliens might be living among us on this planet. We also have a new report out that NASA's been looking tentatively in our own backyard in the solar system for signs that Earth is not the only place of life near us. Let's start with, you know, the potential that they could be among us, that maybe there's a dimension that we can't see or experience in some way, and that we're surrounded by life that we just can't see, touch, or feel.
Yeah, I've seen no evidence that there's aliens among us, in other words, on our planet. I've seen plenty of evidence that there's indication that extraterrestrial craft have moved through our atmosphere. And that's based on the speed, the movement, the acceleration. But I don't know that I can, go with the aliens among us part.
Yeah, that's a tough one for me to believe too. But when I look out at all those stars, it is hard for me to think that there's not something out there looking back somewhere. Robert Powell, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
What I saw that night, I can never forget it. Ellsworth Air Force Base, November 1977.
At the time, Mario Woods served in the Air Force on the Security Police Response Team in the 44th Missile Security Squadron. That night in mid-November, Mario and his new partner Michael Johnson were guarding a nuclear launch facility in a remote area of Ellsworth Air Force Base in rural South Dakota. The weather was freezing, the sky was clear.
And I just happened to look to the east and I see these lights. That I didn't hear any motors whirring or nothing. I go, well, that's awful strange. So I thought, well, what could that be? All of a sudden this idea comes into my mind. Sometimes at sea, they would use lights instead of radio communication to talk to a sister ship. And I just went blip, 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 blip like that. And all of a sudden, the lights went off, lights went on, lights went off, came back on. I go, wow, that's interesting.
Mario called his partner outside and repeated the exercise. The lights in the sky blinked back again. When Mario tried a third time, the lights in the sky turned off and stayed off.
I said, well, I guess the show's over. And he didn't say anything. He just turned and started to walk back in.
Hours later, just after midnight, their flight security controller received a call. There was a major security breach detected at the November 5 nuclear launch site. Mario and his partner headed off to investigate the SIT-4 perimeter alert. They arrived to a scene that would change the course of Mario's life.
So we arrived at site just a few moments before 1 a.m. And there sat in front of us, or on top of November 5, an object that was the size of a Walmart building, sitting 10 feet in the air directly on top of a blast door of November 5 missile site, a Minuteman II 1-megaton weapon missile site, sitting motionless, quiet, no whirring motors, no anything. There's no cockpit, there's no access, there's no writing. All I saw was like an electrical discharge on the exterior of this gargantuan vehicle. I know it was a vehicle. So as we got closer to this thing, Michael Johnson never said a word. We pull up at a 45-degree angle. There's no way that I'm going on that site. The fear just came out of nowhere. That whatever fear I can describe was just everywhere for me. You know, we're humans. We can be afraid too, right? Something greater than us. I mean, and naturally it's going to invoke fear. When we pulled up, I remember saying, that's the object we were seeing. No comment from Michael Johnson, none whatsoever. All of a sudden, the light became so bright. Dust particles moving through the cabin like in slow motion. Out of nowhere, this black ball, it just shot out of nowhere. And it came right down in front of the hood. It just went right, left, up, down, stationary, moved, and then just went, and it was gone. I kept saying, Michael, what's going on? What's wrong, man? No answer, no nothing. I just sensed it. And there's four beings. There's three small and one tall behind the three. And they just approached me. They weren't walking, they were just gliding. And I hear in my mind, in my body, do not fear. The clearest resonance of a sound that I can't even describe how clear it was. All of a sudden I guess I was just out, completely out. And it was a flash. I opened my eyes, gasping for air, which was fine. I was in total blackness. And I said, Michael, I said, where are we? And now all of a sudden it's after 6, so we had 5 hours of complete blackness.
Mario and his partner were found miles from where they disappeared. There were no tire tracks or footprints in the deep mud surrounding the vehicle.
You can't just let it go. You have to have
Tonight on The Future of Everything, we've got some new UAP video from filmmaker and journalist Jeremy Corbell, who is standing by to break it all down. But first, here's a little bit of a closer look. This is a freeze frame. This is with some boosted contrast of what appears to be a disc-shaped object captured back in 2020, possibly somewhere over Afghanistan, Pakistan, the border there. Roll the video here. Jeremy says that this was filmed by some sort of asset, DOD asset, and forward-looking infrared shot from above looking down, and was, according to Corbell, the U.S. Air Force describing this object as possibly navigating through the clouds. There's no heat signature that you can see here. Nothing you would expect for a normal aircraft as it dips its way through. We're told the Pentagon logged it as a UAP, but so far it has not appeared on the Aero public list. That office tracking this stuff, whose official response to our request for comment was, quote, "We have nothing to offer." So Jeremy Corbell is the host of the podcast Weaponized. He joins us on set. Jeremy, good to see you. Welcome back.
Good to see you, man.
All right. So getting into this, navigating through the clouds, like, I hate to even bring this up, but that sounds a lot like Jordan Peele wrote it in Nope, right? That's what we saw a little bit in Nope. What's going on here? What are we looking at?
Yeah. So for a couple years of investigating this footage, right, making sure it's authentic, where it came from, that was the running joke, was that it looks like the movie Nope. What we're seeing here that's different than ever before, you know that I've obtained and released with George Knapp thermal videos of UAP. Now, our government has admitted some of what we've put out. They've admitted their UAP. I'll tell you this, I'm not saying it. That was in the original footage. It says UAP navigating through clouds. They called it a disc. I'm not even calling it a disc, but what you're seeing is first shape. I have never seen in all UFO history, when it comes out of military, an actual circular form. It was amazing to me. The second is the movement. When you see it make an abrupt turn from your left to your right when you're watching it. And the third thing that really was astonishing to me, this is in thermal. There is no heat signature of traditional propulsion. It is a perfect looking disc. Maybe it's an orb. I don't know, but I do know this. Our Air Force passively captured it. Then they said that this is a UAP. It is still designated a UAP. So when George and I obtain and release these, it's so the public can see. We're hoping to do a little bit of the job that we're not seeing with folks from Aero.
Now, it does say AI enhanced. There, it looks like there's some artifacting around it. What is the actual video, and what is possible artifacts from trying to boost the contracts and see what's going on here?
So we did an analysis of the video, but what I did was make sure to put out the original things that George and Knapp and I obtained. So you see it clearly says video 1, video 2, video 3. Our own government, because they've been studying this in the intelligence community since 2020, they did a sort of rudimentary, I would say, kind of highlighting or enhancement of it. And that's why you see like a white ring around it.
It's 2020 enhancement. This is like pre-ChatGPT, pre-AI revolution here.
So what we did was we went in there just so people could see it better. We make it very clear, AI enhanced, because it changes the shape. It's a perfect sphere or a perfect circle, depending on angle of observation when you watch it. So what we did was heighten contrast, and we also made sure that you could see as it goes into clouds, we punched in. So the military videos are the ones that are black and white. The ones that we tried to enhance so people could just see a little bit better of shape and movement is kind of more blue.
And it's circular, and this is looking down at Earth, so you're looking at the clouds. Like, is there a chance that this is just a balloon?
Right. So if you look at the movement and you look at wind, and this is why we put it out to the detectives online, but our military doesn't think so. Our military called it a disc. Our intelligence community has been at this since 2020. Now, look, when assets like this get out to journalists like me and George, we're not experts at this, but we know and can report that our military calls this UAP, like every piece of footage we've put out. It's fascinating, man. And I think this rides on a much bigger and more important topic, which is that there are whistleblowers, and there are 3 who have confirmed to me, firsthand whistleblowers, that they will testify under oath publicly at Congress. Congress needs to respond to this video. It is time for them to respond to this because I have people that are willing to testify at the next congressional hearing on UAP.
Yeah, whether people like it or not, I mean, you have become the conduit for so many of these videos here. The military, to us, the DOD is like, we have nothing to offer on this, and yet we don't see it on the Aero website. What part of this would be classified? Like, why wouldn't this be listed?
I am not qualified to assess that kind of answer. I don't know. But what I do know is that every time that George Knapp and we obtain and release footage, it is funny how Aero then puts out something that looks similar, but is not similar. Why don't you just put it out to the American public? I'm actually asking them to do so. They should do so, just like all the videos that George Knapp and I obtained and released. And when they do put stuff out, a lot of times what they do is they just take what was already publicly available, like the Tic Tac UAP. And you might remember I released a Tic Tac UAP from 2023. This is ongoing, man. And I'll tell you one last thing about this. This is the tip of the iceberg. What you're seeing here. George Knapp and I are committed to reporting on our best evidence, and you're seeing a part of that now.
No, that means that you got more. That means that there's other stuff. I know you well enough to...
I hope that the world gets to see more, better, diverse footage. I am not in absolute control of how the world receives things, but as a journalist, I am going to fight to get as much out as humanly possible.
Got it. And real quick, what's the update on Capitol Hill? Like, sometimes it seems like there's progress being made towards some sort of disclosure. Next thing you know, it's completely forgotten. No one's talking about it. And it seems like it's fallen off the radar. Like, when are we going to get answers?
It has not fallen off the radar. So Representative Luna has a task force. Representative Burleson is being vocal. Representative Burchett is fighting the fight to get transparency on UAP because UFOs are real and they show us something. They demonstrate a technology that we cannot replicate. Even Aero has to admit that. So the American public wants to know, are we going to have hearings? And I'll tell you this, man, I have constant talks on a weekly basis with everybody organizing, including David Grush, who still works in government as a whistleblower now. He got a job working with UAP task force or whatever they're calling it now. There will be more hearings. If they have courage, there will be more hearings. And I have 3 firsthand witnesses that they can put up to testify.
We're looking forward to witnesses. We're looking forward to more evidence. Jeremy Corbell, so good to see you.
Fascinating topic, isn't it?
Yeah, always a fascinating topic.
Jonathan Weygandt, he is told at one point that there's a downed friendly or foreign plane. No big deal. After a combination of driving and trekking, they encounter a clearing. There's an enormous egg-shaped, teardrop-shaped craft embedded in the cliff face. And there seemed to be a hatch open with an arm hanging out with 4 fingers.
It was dripping this syrup-like, this liquid. It was everywhere. It was weird. It was purplish green color.
He feels like a being is communicating to him in his mind, telling him not to be scared, but also asking for help.
They were not going to harm me. And that was basically that everything was going to be all right. Just help us get out of here.
There's one common thread I found, and each of these 3 people had the same thing happen that they kind of answered independently. They're immediately intercepted by between 8 and 12 operators in all black, no insignia, no name tags, held at gunpoint. All 3 of these men, directly after their encounters, were given what they were told were anthrax vaccine boosters.
Anthrax boosters.
Yeah,
so weird. You are one of the few people who put names, dates, programs, acronyms to the actual UFO legacy program. You're famous for your acronyms.
CONUS and OCONUS, outside CONUS, Continental United States Intelligence, Surveillance, Reconnaissance Platforms, ISR, OICI, and yes, FFRDC, federally funded research and development centers.
Wow.
Correct.
You have somebody like Dick Cheney, maybe at the top.
Yeah.
And then you have these 6 different kind of high up intelligence organizations.
And DOD stuff.
And DOD stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have DOD plus intelligence organizations.
Yeah. Do you know the first director of OGA, the Office of Global Access?
Is that Doug Wolf?
This is Doug Wolf. Do you know Doug Wolf spent 16 years in the NRO? He was the executive assistant to the director of the National Reconnaissance Office.
Whoa.
He was indeed CIA DS&T deputy director. He indeed started the OGA.
Whoa.
And indeed, he was the DDNI ATNF, the deputy director for National Intelligence for Acquisition, Technology, and Facilities. Who has direct oversight over NRO acquisitions.
Crazy. So obviously Bob Lazar, was briefed on Project Looking Glass.
Yeah.
Which is like the manipulation of timelines. You have Tim Taylor. He kind of thinks of himself as like a adjustment bureau, timeline management person.
This sphere was basically used to, I guess, like coagulate time onto the Planck scale, looking at time as frames of Planck scale, and combined with like the many worlds interpretation of quantum physics to like view parallel timelines.
There's a deeper program called the Legacy Program that has really seems to have been trying to hide the most shocking pieces of what we know from even the UAP task force. We've had Lou Elizondo on this show, and he talked to us about some of what we'd learned. This is years ago. I mean, it was when we first launched the program in 2020. But here he is as part of the documentary, Age of Disclosure, speaking to what this Legacy Program has uncovered. I'm just going to run the SOT 54 here.
We discovered another deeply hidden and much larger UAP program. This program was so sensitive that it was withheld from the Secretary of Defense, Congress, and even the President of the United States. This program is referred to as the Legacy Program. This program had been capturing, retrieving, and reverse engineering UAPs since at least 1947. On numerous occasions, these retrievals included the bodies of non-humans, some sort of intelligent being that is not human.
On numerous occasions. I mean, that is just stunning, David. To like people who don't follow this, he's saying they found some sort of alien beings' bodies along with the crafts, that the government has had it for decades. It's happened multiple times, and that they're all, the whole theory of the entire movie with all of these storied experts, these are not crackpots. I mean, if they're crackpots, boy, they found dozens of them who have been at the highest levels of our government over generations, who are all saying, yes, this has happened. And the reason that they keep it secret from everyone, including, they point out in the piece, our own presidents over time, is what?
Well, it depends on the time epoch in which administration. Certainly, there were former secretaries of defense and presidents that were briefed on this matter. It depended on their level of trust that the deep state, if you will, the lifers in the governments had with those said individuals. And unfortunately, this subject has been a victim of a lot of, I'll call it domestic information operations, something I discussed initially publicly in 2023. And there's certainly been this Game of Thrones activity with multiple factions of the deep state in a bipartisan manner. The Republicans and the Democrats are both guilty. And even in a recent previous administration, in the Obama administration, there was certainly actions taken strategically to help a particular presidential candidate, possibly if this subject were to become normalized and they got elected president. So there's been a lot of gamesmanship and a lot of, I'll call it house of cards type activities in the past. But it is true that a lot of people have been withheld. I found it deeply disgusting and shocking that even I was not fully accessed into these activities, and I did have a congressionally mandated need to know. I investigated this on behalf of the first Trump administration and some of Trump's cabinet members, and Senator Rubio when he was a senator, now Secretary Rubio, and providing my findings up the chain. I was just very disturbed to find how this was controlled, the self-licking ice cream cone, unaccountable. Everybody owns a piece. Nobody owns the outcome, and there's not really a mob boss. The closest person we got that I was aware of was, unfortunately, now deceased Vice President Dick Cheney, Darth Vader himself. Not shocking that he was involved in this. And essentially, when he left in 2009, that was the last time that these activities really had central leadership.
Yeah, because the film posits that, the current and the last head of CIA probably don't know, but there's like lower branches within the CIA that have specific responsibilities, and the career employees there probably do. And they don't look at the political appointees brought in by a president as someone to whom they need to disclose anything. They're like, this guy's going to be gone in, a year, 2 years, 4 at the most. I'm not going to keep disclosing this to person after person. I'm keeping this very dark. as my predecessor did. And it also posits that when it's super secret, they've been offloading the research to private contractors. And that way they don't have to include any of these disclosures in response to FOIA requests made of the federal government, because it's been given to a private entity. But that too leads to no accountability and no person over the life of 20 years who's got real responsibility, because companies get sold, new people come in, and then these companies may just exploit the materials for the latest technological advantage. Who knows, like, I don't know, some AI development or some fast speed train development that a company may have used the information to build a commercial advantage with.
That's totally true. You actually accurately described how it is. Early on the global war on terror, a lot of the money that was initially given to these companies was essentially reallocated for overseas contingency operations. And these contractors essentially started to do their own thing, if you will, something called IRAD, Internal Research and Development. And privately, they continued certain things that actually the government was trying to cancel as it relates to the subject. And they went off and retrieved and exploited things essentially on their own, and only loosely accountable back to their government handlers. And it's funny you mentioned the CIA. Naturally, there's a lot of good men and women that work there. My wife actually was a CIA officer, and she also served in the Air Force with me. But Chairwoman Luna and the task force and the committee staff, certainly I assisted in my other professional capacity, helping Representative Burleson's office, did send legal interrogatives to several agencies and private companies. CIA was one of them. And curiously enough, CIA provided what I considered an extremely disrespectful response. They declined to answer our interrogatives on this matter, which is their participation in crash retrieval operations, and just referred us to the Pentagon's Aero Office, which has a nebulous and concerning history in itself. And I just find it very interesting that CIA did that. Now, I'm not saying John Ratcliffe or Michael Ellis, who's the acting general counsel and deputy director, had a hand in that response, but they certainly are the leaders of their organization. John Ratcliffe has spoke positively on this issue previously, and I would hope that John Ratcliffe was placed there by D&I Gabbard and the president to enact some reforms on the CIA. And unfortunately, the CIA has a lot of skeletons in its closets. Other things I know about that I can't talk about that are conventional national security issues, but the crash retrieval issue, unfortunately, is certainly one of them, and they've done a lot of concerning things.
What's being alleged by you and many others is that they have literal skeletons in their closet or whatever
they do.
Whatever's inside an alien being. Because it sounds crazy. Just throw it out there short form. It sounds crazy, but person after person, distinguished scientist after intel person is making the same claim, validating the stories about Roswell, telling other stories that have happened at many military facilities with what appears to be a clear alien craft coming overhead, looking almost diamond-like in shape, being huge, sitting there hovering, coming from something like 80,000 feet and dropping down, then hovering in a way that no vehicle that we know of right now could possibly do, nothing invented by man. Here is a montage from the movie of top U.S. officials talking about how all of this is relevant because it may pose a serious national security threat. It's SOP 42.
We've had repeated instances of something operating in the airspace over restricted nuclear facilities, and it's not ours, and we don't know whose it is. That alone, just that statement alone, deserves inquiry, deserves attention, deserves focus.
If you have objects in the sky that you cannot identify, that's a problem because it could be China, it could be Russia, it could be any adversary.
Well, any unexplained phenomenon could pose a national security threat.
Clapper.
That's the way you have to treat those things.
There's something violating our airspace. There's something fouling our ranges that even the people we've tasked in the executive branch to understand this cannot provide an explanation. So I would say, in addition to the national security implications, this has implications for basic trust and confidence in the American government.
I just want to play one more. Here we have a former Navy pilot describing the UAPs defying extreme weather and physics in SOP 45.
In 2014 to 2015, we were operating off the coast of Virginia Beach, off the eastern seaboard. It was during this time that we upgraded our radar from the APG-73 to the APG-79 radar. And this allowed us to essentially see more objects we weren't expecting to see. And there's a particular case of one of these objects maintaining a complete stationary position inside of 120 knot winds, essentially inside of a hurricane.
They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots to the west. So look at this thing. It's rotated.
It just seems like they're not affected by the environment the way we are.
And there's testimonial after testimonial like that, David. That's not unique to have an experienced fighter pilot. Like our men and women in the military have been quietly coming forward and reporting on this for a long time, only to be told, keep your mouth shut.
No, that's true. And I have Air Force pilot friends of mine that have seen astounding things while on duty, to include glowing triangular craft, hovering above other aircraft cruising at 50,000 feet. And I did want to point out General Clapper, the former DNI, in the documentary. I certainly applaud him for at least speaking out in general. He goes on, I believe, I've only seen clips of Age of Disclosure, not the whole thing, where there was a program when he was the Director of National Intelligence where they were tracking these vehicles over Area 51, of course, the famed classified test location. And I'm a little bit disappointed as a fellow Air Force officer, and certainly General Clapper rose to the ranks as 3-star general. That's all he said in the documentary, that was a program he was aware of. In fact, without being inappropriate, I will say that General Clapper was well aware of the crash retrieval issue, managed the crash retrieval issue, and when he was the DNI, USDI, and DIA director, he placed people in critical roles to manage this issue, both publicly and I'll just say non-publicly as well. And I'll allow the audience distill what I'm saying at the risk of being inappropriate or going too far with my discussion. So General Clapper, Stephanie O'Sullivan, other folks in the IC that are well aware of this issue, that were in rooms discussing this issue, I ask you to be greater leaders on this. I should not be the only former military officer and intelligence official that is being completely candid with the information that they were exposed to. So perhaps
and once again, James Clapper understates.
Fellow UAP truth seekers, Ross Coulthard here, doing a quick commentary for this YouTube channel. I want to talk about David Grush's interview with Megyn Kelly, which was, frankly, momentous. It's one of the first times that David's put his head up in the last couple of years since he first spoke to me in June 2023, and what he said was taking on directly one of the people who appeared in the Age of Disclosure movie. General James Clapper, a fellow Air Force officer of David Grush's, no less. Clapper, of course, was a lieutenant general in the US Air Force, and he went on to become the director of national intelligence, the guy who coordinated all of America's intelligence organizations, an incredibly important oversight role. And it's interesting because one of the big questions has always been, in the Age of Disclosure movie, how much do these people know? How much did Clapper know? It was significant and it was very important that James Clapper appeared in the film, but he kind of gave a bit of an equivocatory, mealy-mouthed comment, admitting that there was a program that had been tracking UAPs. That was a bit of a bleh moment. I didn't really care about it that much. But what was very, very interesting was what David Grush is revealing. He has revealed that General James Clapper, the former DNI, he not only rose to the ranks as a 3-star US Air Force general, and that David said, quote, that's all that's Clapper, said in the documentary, that was a program that he was aware of, that there was this program that was monitoring UAPs. And then you could see David clearly made a decision to say a little bit more. And he went on to say, quote, in fact, without being inappropriate, I will say that General Clapper was well aware of the crash retrieval issue, managed the crash retrieval issue, and when he was the DNI director, he placed people in critical roles to manage this issue, both publicly and I'll just say non-publicly as well. Not quite sure what that means. And I'll allow the audience to distill what I'm saying at the risk of being inappropriate or going too far with my discussion. So General Clapper, Stephanie O'Sullivan, other folks in the intelligence community that are well aware of this issue, that were in rooms discussing this issue, I ask you to be greater leaders on this. I should not, says David Grush, be the only former military officer and intelligence official that is being completely candid with the information that they were exposed to. So perhaps, and once again, James Clapper understates what he knows and what he's done, not wittingly. It is a very, very important admission by David to say that General James Clapper, who was the Director of National Intelligence, managed the retrieval program. It does make you wonder how many other people with intelligence community links like James Clapper, who've taken a high-profile role in UAP advocacy and disclosure commentary, in fact have a secret past inside the legacy program. Are there people who aren't letting on how much they know? Yes, there are. And the simple problem with them being able to reveal what they know is the constraints of their national security oath. Watch this space. There's going to be more about this coming in 2026. Things are about to get very interesting. But it's extremely significant.
That is first-hand, direct witness evidence from you of a UAP, a flying saucer, a non-human craft.
I got to the third canister, I think it was, and part way in, there it was. Here was this series of photographs, black and white photographs of a crashed flying saucer. There wasn't any doubt about what it was. It was a winter scene. There was snow on the ground, and the saucer, it was a classic large disc saucer, about 40, 50 feet across, with a big dome on the top of it. It had hit into this snow-covered field and it plowed this big ditch all the way across the field, like the earth was all turned up, and it was stuck into the side of this big snow-covered embankment, stuck in there like at a 45-degree angle, just stuck in the side of the hill. And I could see all around it, there were these Air Force personnel. They were in winter jackets, with the big fur around the hood, and they were taking photographs of it. And I actually saw one of the guys in one of the photos. There were like three of them that I saw the photos, and they had one of these old-timey cameras, a movie camera, like with the two big round canisters on the top of them. So it must have been like in like the late 40s or early 50s or something, I figured. And so that and then all of a sudden I realized that in one of the photos I could see around the bottom of the dome of the crash saucer that was stuck in the embankment, these symbols. And I looked at them and I said, wow, look at those. There's nothing like anything I've ever seen. They're not Russian. They're not Chinese. They're not, hieroglyphics. They're totally unique. So I said, okay, I'm going to trace these because I want to make sure they're absolutely identical to what is there and that they're in the exact sequence that they're in. And so I did is I took out the yellow.
These are top secret files, Denny. Isn't that an act of espionage?
Well, no, I'd been cleared to see them. And so what I did is I took out the yellow pad, and interestingly enough, it's just one of those instinctive things. I opened up the yellow pad to the inside cardboard backing. And what I did is I pushed the backing underneath the microfiche machine and then focused the microfiche right onto the inside cover of the yellow pad so that I traced them identically, absolutely, totally accurately, every single one of them. And there must have been about 8 or 10 of them that were all obvious. So I traced them in detail, and I got them all done. I kept looking up to see if anybody was watching. And so I got it all done, and I closed the yellow pad, and I said, that's it. I got it. That's a UFO, man. And look, it's got all these unique symbols on them. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the stuff away. I put the little microfiche away, put it back in the box, took the yellow pad, stood up, and put it under my arm. I have my suit on, and I didn't put it inside my suit to try to hide it. I just stuck it under my arm. And I turned around and got up and walked out. I walked right straight out the door, and the two guys were kind of surprised. And I'm surprised when I think about it that I left as soon as I did, but I had the information, and I said, I don't want to take any chances at all. So I left. I went out the door, and I reached down and picked up my briefcase that was sitting there by the side, and I started walking down the hall. And all of a sudden, one of the guys said, hold it. Hey, hold it. And I stopped, and he said, what is that you got there? And I said, oh, that's my briefcase. I just picked my briefcase up, which was there. He said, no, under your arm. What's under your arm there? Both of them came over to me and kind of loomed over me. And one of them reached over and yanked the yellow pad away from me and then ruffled through all the yellow pages. And there was nothing on them, of course. And then he kind of grumpily handed it back to me. And so I put it back under my arm and just turned around, picked up my briefcase and started walking down the hall. I hope I wasn't whistling, to try to get, but I went down the hallway and got into the elevator. When I got in the elevator, I opened up my briefcase and put the yellow pad in, got up and went up the stairs, and walked right straight out the door, and went back to Jesuit headquarters.
Property. This craft is at regular speed moving by that house behind the power lines. It's a saucer-shaped craft with most of the propulsion system turned down low. Here is its half speed to give you a better idea of the view of this, the maneuverability. I had one astronaut on a MUFON lecture a couple of months ago in Orange County ask me a question, a shuttle pilot, why do they move what we call erratically? And I mentioned to him the fact that aerodynamics doesn't apply to them the same way. This is a picture of a newer type of craft. The bell-shaped craft is a very old historical craft that they came with for reasons to remind us in our historical record. But this particular lenticular craft is capable of interplanetary travel without the carrier craft. This is taken in Wisconsin. And if this craft's maneuverability for both towards you and then moving backwards and then sideways, dipping, these type of films astounded the military. Still some of the best in civilian hands. Completely different place, completely different environment. This is half speed. These craft can range anywhere from the smallest of about 33 feet, the largest of the bell-shaped probably about 120 feet. The cigar-shaped craft from about 1,000 feet is their smallest to about 20 miles. This is theirs. There's a difference between ours. We'll discuss that. This is taken in Boston. This is a smaller, what you call registering disc, or what George referred to as a registering disc. This is a remote control device, very much like we have ROVs that we use in submersibles that go down and do some of the investigation for us. A registering disc is there to collect information as well. If we were going to use a science term for it, we would call it a probe. And it shows you, once again, it works on free energy, in which there are about 1,200 lines per square centimeter. And through that magnetism, they propel themselves quite sufficiently past the speed of light. And George made that claim that they could go as fast as the speed of magnetism, which is twice the speed of light. And everybody said, well, that's impossible. According to Einstein, you can't do that. And if we're well read, we know about 6 months ago, we actually admitted to the fact that acceleration past the speed of light is attainable. In fact, we've simulated it. So over the many decades, the information that was given to George about space, its conditions, all have come full circle to be validated. And he's probably the only one I know that has given such a plethora of information that was really sought out and has provided true interaction at all levels. This is in Silver Springs. And what you're going to see here is that in a later footage, prior to the larger craft coming down, the registering disc comes down here between the trees, and measures the distance. And this information was later uplinked to the computer of the larger craft, so that craft could come down and do that maneuvering within that tight space near the camera in order to be filmed successively. You'll see here, of course, you've got 8mm film that's all old. This comes from the 50s and 60s, so the restoration is in the process. This is the craft that came down later, and you can see by these still shots that are this last surviving stills from the
West Carleton, Canada, 1991. On a small farm, a pulsating glowing craft was captured on video by an anonymous source. To this day, many experts say this could be the best video of an alien spacecraft landing on terrestrial soil. Bob Exler, a former NASA mission specialist, received the tape in the mail, along with strange documents and a fingerprint from a source known only as the Guardian.
In my judgment, the so-called Guardian case is one of the most sophisticated and well-documented UFO cases in history. We have a videotape with some physical evidence from that. There was enough information in the package to suggest a landing site where the event occurred. We found witnesses, eyewitnesses to the event. This was clearly a disc-shaped object with some rather unique-looking appendages.
We don't know what that really represents, but it clearly is the overall shape, and you can see that because the flares in the background are illuminating smoke, which are backlighting this object.
Navy optical physicist Dr. Bruce Maccabee determined that the craft, hovering low above the field, appears to be 25 feet in diameter. He doesn't think it's the work of a Hollywood special effects team.
This was a real event, witnessed by some people other than Guardian, which makes this an important case. It's my opinion, it's not a hoax.
Rather inexplicably, Canadian policeman Dennis DeHaye disagrees. He believes the craft is real, but it's much more conventional.
Most of the people I spoke with indicated that helicopters had been flying in the area for some time, and that the sighting was not that of a UFO. In fact, as far as they're concerned, it was a helicopter.
DeHaye says he analyzed the footage as part of a Canadian study.
After reviewing all the information, I'm convinced, and I'll always be convinced, that this is a helicopter.
My response to that is it's a ridiculous explanation. And what appears in the video does not look at all like a helicopter.
Dr. Maccabee's strong rebuttal is supported by an exhaustive investigation carried out by one of NASA's top computer imaging experts, Dr. Robert Nathan, who spent considerable effort analyzing the footage unofficially for a network TV program. Dr. Nathan could not explain the images and could not correlate them to any known aircraft. In addition, Dr. Nathan, nor any other investigator, has been able to determine what kind of technology created the strange luminosity exhibited by the dish-shaped craft, as well as the oddly strobing bright light seen above it, blinking much faster than any beacon light ordinarily observed on conventional helicopters or planes. Convinced that this case might be proof that alien spacecraft are visiting Earth, many UFO researchers worldwide hope that whoever or whatever Guardian represents will one day come forward to resolve the mysteries surrounding the footage once and for all.
On August 19th, 1991, in the town of Carp, on the outskirts of Ottawa, Ontario, an anonymous videotaper shot some of the most compelling UFO footage ever recorded.
In February of 1992, I received a rather unusual package in the mail, included a videotape and a series of documents. It was postmarked from the Ottawa, Ontario area without a return address. The documents and the label on the videotape made reference to an individual by the name of Guardian as the author.
The videotape shows what appears to be a disc-shaped object landing in a field behind the house of Diane Labenek. She was an eyewitness to the phenomenon.
On my property, I've seen lots of bright flames. They were not like spreading fires. There were more individual flames going extremely high and a lot of smoke. I saw this bright, bright light. Right on top of it was like a beak, and it was blue light pulsing, and it had a light right on the bottom and a light right in the middle of it. And I seen a ship just coming down over the tree and going very closer to the flames. That night was a very traumatic night for me. I can always remember that night. It will never be forgotten.
Dr. A.J. Quarrington is one of the Lavinek's neighbors. He also witnessed the UFO.
I looked out the back window, and in the sky was a great golden globe with a thin red rim. The only thing that came to mind quickly was that it was lightning, but I'd never seen lightning in a circular form.
There you can get some indication that you're looking underneath with lights on it, and then see a surface on the top here. This is a freeze frame here. You can see some indication of a bottom, and then actually from the glow behind it, you get kind of a silhouette of the shape of it. So from this aim, you can see some indication that there's a solid craft there that you can see the top of and also see something underneath. But at least there is the hint of a cylindrical object here.
One of the first things that we found when we located the site way at the back of the field down there by the tree line was that there was one specific area, a circular pattern really, where all of the plant life had been exposed to some form of radiation. And by that I mean it just kind of melted. Real healthy bushes just melted to the ground.
The footage was so compelling, we went straight to the Canadian Air Force, trying to rule out the possibility that the UFO is a secret military craft.
The events described, shown, do not match any of Canadian airplane movements or helicopter movement.
It wasn't an ordinary airplane, and it wasn't just an ordinary light. It was something more than that. It was a ship. It was a ship as big as my house.
Too many of them appear to be honest people. Too much of the data is too difficult to fake. It gets to the point when you have 40,000 reports of UFOs per year, of which about a quarter of them aren't easily explainable. To assume that all of those are misidentifications, frauds, hoaxes, secret aircraft just doesn't add up.
With me is author and filmmaker Robert Emenegger and former security manager and chief of requirements for the audio-visual program at Norton Air Force Base, Paul Shartle. Gentlemen, Mr. Emenegger, how did you get involved with UFOs?
Well, it was in 1973 when I was vice president at Gray Advertising, and I took time out and went to Norton Air Force Base to explore subjects for television specials related to the Defense Department. While discussing several of the subjects, UFOs came up, and Paul here told us about a film of a landing of alien crafts at Holloman Air Force Base about 3 years earlier.
What did you see, Mr. Shartle?
I saw footage of 3 disc-shaped crafts. One of the craft landed and 2 of them went away.
Why did it land?
It appeared to be in trouble because it oscillated all the way down to the ground. However, it did land on 3 pods. A sliding door opened, a ramp was extended, and out came 3 aliens.
What did they look like?
Well, they were human-sized. They had odd gray complexion and a pronounced nose. They wore tight-fitting jumpsuits, thin headdresses that appeared to be communication devices, and in their hands they held a translator, I was told. The Holloman base commander and other Air Force officers went out to meet them.
You actually saw these aliens on the film?
Yes.
This film footage sounded very, very special, and we wanted to use it as the ending of our television special.
Did you? Was it in your special?
Well, although the Pentagon had been very, very cooperative all the way, at the last minute the film was confiscated and we lost the whole finale of our show. But what I saw and heard was enough to convince me that, you know, the phenomenon of UFOs is real, very real.
Mr. Shartle, what did your superior officers tell you?
I was told it was theatrical footage the Air Force has purchased to make a training film.
Well, that sounds plausible, doesn't it?
Well, if it were a theatrical film, why didn't I have a record of this? It was my job to keep accurate records of all audiovisual purchases.
Is there any other reason that you feel this was not a theatrical film?
Yes, it was too real. The people who were shooting that day were Air Force personnel. Lucky for us, the day they were shooting, they were doing an acceleration test.
Yeah, well, it's too bad we couldn't get that footage from the Air Force. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being with us.
Then they put the documentary out, and then I find out that there's 8 seconds of the Holloman Air Force Base film in the film. So Bob's my friend. I phone up Bob. there's 8 seconds of film in there. And he goes, well, yeah. And I said, you told me they pulled the film. You told me it was sent back to the Pentagon. And he said, well, it did. And he told me this whole story about the guy going across the country in this small Datsun, taking the film back to the Pentagon. I said, but there's 8 seconds of film in the documentary. And then he said the key words. He said, but it didn't show anything. And I said, oh no, he said, it's background. And I said, background? What do you mean it's background? And he said, it didn't show anything. And what it is you see the hills of Holloman, and you see this object, this brilliantly lit object at 6 o'clock in the morning coming over the hills, but it's in a distance. So you don't see it close up, and you don't see the alien when the alien gets out. That's the classified part. So they want you to know that Holloman happened, and they allowed them to use the 8 seconds of the film, but the rest of the film, the classified part, was pulled.
My name's Jordan Jozak. You may know me from the recent Skywatcher series, where myself, among other folks like Jacob Barber, gave testimony about our experiences in covert and compartmented programs. That was last year, August. I gave testimony in that video where I described my first-hand experience with non-human intelligence and the affiliated technology. Today is October 13th, 2025, and to date, no one from Congress has contacted me. So, I figured I'd like to tell my own story this time. Instead of going on big shows where everyone's trying to control a narrative and present their own flavor of the same pie, I think it's time we have an honest conversation about what's actually going on. And the truth is, it's not easy to explain. In fact, I'm not even sure if I know how to exactly explain it, but here's the basics. If you watch the Skywatcher series, you saw me claim that I was in a psionic exploitation program between the years of 2005 and 2010. And if you're looking at me and trying to do the age comparison, you're right. I'm age 30. In 2005 and 2010, I was ages 9 and 14. This is one of the difficult things that we're going to have to navigate if we desire disclosure as a nation. There are very uncomfortable truths regarding the past programmatic nature of the program itself. And quite frankly, I didn't ask for any of this. I was scouted within the school system through the Gifted and Talented Education Network. In 2005, I began a relationship with a psychologist who would come into my school district, and I would begin to become separated from the rest of my classmates. This continued on, a relationship when my parents were not fully given the truth of why I was seeing a psychologist or why the school district was recommending that I would see them after hours. But this relationship progressed for a few years. What was happening during that time was I was progressing through the outer areas of a psionic recruitment program that, to my knowledge, has been running throughout the United States for some time. You don't have to look too far to look back at Gifted and Talented Education Initiatives, as well as TAG, Talented and Gifted Initiatives as well. The problem being is not all of that is bad. However, for those that are familiar with how intelligence operations work, they work covertly. They work through channels that carry plausible deniability. And that was the nature of what happened to me. In 2008, I was progressing and excelling within the program to the point that they removed me from the public school district. And for 2 years, I attended school at what seemed like a very normal, lockdown, scan in, scan out, off-site facility. My parents were just told that I was going there to get better. I just needed mental health treatment. But what they didn't know is that facility was a cover for a much larger program where I interacted with non-human intelligence and its associated technology. I interacted with a piece of technology known as Sylvia within the program. And that's where things get very difficult. Up to this point, the conversation within the Disclosure Network has been solely focused on the nuts and bolts characteristics, the UAP, the tech, the flying saucers, and everything else imaginable in the materialistic sense. But there's a big missing link in how we navigate this.
Welcome to another Let's Talk Paranormal, and boy do we have a show for you today.
Every single one of us has some kind of a story to share. But for my special studio guest today, Dr. Frank Stranges, he has a rather unique story to tell, because during 1950s, he claims to have met a man from Venus. Yes, you heard me correctly, a man from Venus named Val Thor. And guess what? It's all documented in this book, Stranger at the Pentagon. And in it, Dr. Frank tells us exactly who Val Thor is, why he's here, and there's even photographs to prove his existence. Dr. Frank, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Tracy.
This really is a real-life day the Earth stood still, isn't it?
Yes, plus. And here, coming toward me with his right hand outstretched, the man whose picture I've been carrying around with me for over a year.
Wow.
He said, "Hello, Frank, how are you?" And I thought, how in the Sam Hill does he know my name? And he knew from that time forward, the moment I touched his fingers, his skin was as soft as a baby.
Right.
And I did turn his hand over. He had no fingerprints on either hand, as bald as a peeled boiled egg. And I questioned him on that later, which he told me. And he asked me questions, just a few questions, but I asked him more questions. And he told me more about my own life than my parents and grandparents put together, which I verified later on.
Mm-hmm.
I said, "What is your name?" He said, "Valiant Thor."
There's something special about Val that, you know, you've already mentioned about having no fingerprints.
Yes.
He has no navel.
No, he has no navel and he has no fingerprints. This is why I believe he falls in the category of a created being, just like an angelic being.
Mm-hmm.
And he's unique in his way, believe you me.
Mm-hmm.
And the other members of his crew and the members of his staff, they all have navels.
Right. But being a created being, of course,
Right.
he wouldn't.
But they don't have any fingerprints either.
Right.
Unique in that manner.
Wow. Let's take a look at the next picture and see what we have.
This is Commander Valiant Thor. That's exactly what he looked like when the photo was taken by Algid Roberts some years before, and that's exactly what he looks like today. He hasn't changed one iota.
Val, just getting back to Val, where is he today?
Valiant Thor today is on board Victor 1, his spacecraft, not too far from the waterline of Lake Mead, Nevada, not too far from Las Vegas. He's there with his entire complement.
Right. And I believe that in your book you have a map of where to, where Lake Mead is.
The area, yes.
Right.
We also have a sketch of the interior of the ship.
Right. And is the ship underneath the waterbed? Is it on
It's
top?
right on the shoreline. Now, it's surrounded by a force field, and the only way you could possibly find that ship is if you look for a row of a circle of dead insects, but the wind would probably drive them away by the time you got there.
Right. So is there a depression there, sort of like a crop circle depression? Or
You won't see it.
You wouldn't see it.
No, because it's heavy gravel.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, Dr. Frank, I have to thank you.
But then they take me up, put me on the ship, and I'm on the ship. It was not a big craft, so they had a set. There was a padded pole in the center with a seat that goes around it. And Mom and Sean were just blanked. They were blank. And I was a little more coherent. And they put us on that seat, and they lowered a circular bar, like if you're on a Ferris wheel or an amusement park ride, so you don't fall out of your seat. But I was a small kid, and Mom and Sean, they're out of it. The two short grays are piloting this craft. The tall gray is out of my sight doing something. And they take everything away. They take your fear, they take your reason, your anger, anything like that. But they really, there's a couple cases where they didn't take curiosity. Because what I wanted to do, I wanted to get out of my seat and look at what my city looks like from above in the air. I'd never been in an airplane. And so I slip under the bar and I creep over, and I'm almost right behind them, so they've got a windshield. All I could see was gray, like we're inside a cloud maybe. So I couldn't see anything, and one of the short grays piloting. turns around and he screams, "What is this one doing up?" And when they have an emotional, the telepathy is not just in your, if they have a strong emotional reaction, then you feel it, like a wave hits you. Or if you've ever been to a very loud concert, you're standing in front of the bass stack of amplifiers, you can feel it in your chest, right? It was like that. What is this one doing up? And the tall gray comes over, puts me back in the seat, and we continue. A few minutes later, whatever they were doing was under control. Because I think they were distracted by actually piloting this ship to not notice me getting up. So now it's all stable. And the other one who didn't yell at me, the other short gray, he wheels his chair around, his backless swivel seat, completely uncomfortable, I'm sure. And he turns around and he says to me with a chuckle, "What was your plan? What were you trying to do?"
Take over the ship.
What was, and I think he was implying that, what you thought, what, you conscious and take over the, he was laughing, what was your plan anyway? What are you trying to do? He was completely amused. And I said to him the truth. I said, I just wanted to see what my city looks like from above. I've always wanted to see it, and I never have. And he says to me, "Oh, okay. Well, his attitude changed. I wasn't, I think this is my ship now," like Captain Phillips. He said, "Well, we don't go up," he said to me. And I'm like confused. He goes, "Well, we go up a little, but then we go down." Ooh. And when he said that, the mean one freaked out. He said to him, "Shut up. Just shut up. You don't tell them that. You don't tell them anything. What are you doing?" And the nice one said, "Well, come on. The kid's curious. That's a good thing, right? Besides, he'll never remember any of this anyway." And the other one said, "Well, just don't." Next thing I remember, I'm standing there outside of our little craft, and there are 300, at least, abductees all around me. It's as busy as a train station. And the floors are curved and arched, smooth as a marble floor in an expensive office building. But the walls are jagged rock, like layers of slate. So you can see the years. And the light was diffuse. It was coming from above, but I didn't notice the lights. I was sedated, and I wasn't concerned with the lights. What I noticed was I saw in the distance a tall gray taking Sean and Mom away from me and going down a corridor. And they're going away. I've got to get over to them. And I'm cutting through lines of people moving, who are under control. They're just going where they're told. It was like a train station, a busy train station. Everyone's trying to make their train. And I'm cutting through and bumping into people, and they're all adults. They're all 6'2", and I'm 9 years old or 10 years old. And a tall gray comes over and he's, "Whoa, whoa, whoa." Pretty much like that. He's like, "Wait, whoa, where are you going?" And I said, "I'm going with them. It's my family. I'm going that way." They said, "No, no, no." He said, "No, no, no. You're over here." And he moves me back into a row of people standing there unconscious. And he puts me there, and I'm paralyzed again. Second time that day. And all I can do is look with my eyes. And I see rows and rows of people standing up, paralyzed, in a trance, unmoving, unreacting, almost like G.I. Joe dolls on the racks at the toy store, on after.
The moon is a spaceship. It was built on Jupiter about 38 million years ago. And between the time it was built and 15,000 years ago, it's been touring around our solar system. Our solar system, we're told by NASA there's 9 planets. There's actually 40. There's the Earth plus 39. And each of those planets has a civilization, and each of those planets has moons that have civilizations. There's so much going on out there that, we could not possibly grasp how much is going on in our solar system. Now, it doesn't have its own propulsion. It has to be towed. And our moon was towed into its orbit now about 15,000 years ago, just after the Ice Age. 2 moons, and then there was 1 moon. And we think that the 2 moons was the vehicle that towed our moon into space. There's a guy named Norman Berggren who's passed away now, very knowledgeable, had so many degrees and works with so many of our aerospace companies doing different things. He lived in Los Altos Hills, which was south of San Francisco, and worked at Lockheed, retired in 1986, and got a hold of some of the Voyager photos of Saturn's rings. And he wrote The Ringmakers of Saturn.
Right. Is that about the fuel coming out, the rings?
Yeah, the spaceship.
The spaceship, yeah.
There's 3 of them that he saw. And one of the biggest is 30,000 miles long and 2,400 miles in diameter. Anyway, I thought it'd be really nice to meet this guy, and I wrote him, and I just happened to be going to the UFO conference in San Jose in 2005. And I went by his house, met him, and we became friends, very good friends over the years. Unfortunately, he passed away a couple of years ago, but in the back part of The Ringmakers of Saturn, he discussed how the moon was towed into its orbit and his proof. And his proof is that Mare Orientale, one of the craters on the back, is not actually a crater, but it's a place. It has concentric rings, right. And he thinks that's where they grabbed onto it. And he proposed that an EMV, electromagnetic vehicle, towed it into place. I said, where do you think it is now? And he said, I think they parked it on the far side until they're ready to use it again. So I started looking for it and found it immediately on the crater Tsiolkovsky. And Tchaikovsky's on the far side. It has a very interesting history. NASA has airbrushed, completely changed the character of that crater 8 times. And, it's absolutely for sure that is the electromagnetic vehicle.
The moon was brought here 12,000 years ago. Our moon is in fact an artificial satellite. It is not a real planet. It can literally leave our orbit underneath its own power. According to the Andromedans, it was brought here from Ursa Minor, from a star system called Chauta that had 21 planets in it. It belonged to the 17th planet and it was one of 4 moons. Now, there are ruins all over it. The map is there. There are some pictures there. There's a lot more, which I don't have today. But it will be coming out. This is why the Apollo astronauts stopped going back. It's because there was somebody already there and they were told not to go back. This information is out there. Okay, our moon is 9.1 billion years old. 9.1 billion years old. It is in fact older than the Earth. Okay, it is many of the materials that have been found on the moon, minerals, don't exist on our planet. The moon did not belong to part of the Earth. It was brought here, literally. Our solar system has 8 artificial moons in it that were brought here. That can literally, underneath their own power, leave our solar system. And there are beings living on it. Now, the upper echelon of the world government know this. They've known it for a very long time. But they didn't want us to know because of the element of power. And we'll discuss that. Now, Earth has been colonized off and on for many hundreds of millions of years. The first race to actually chart our planet was a group from Alpha Draconis. They are reptilian beings. They're anywhere from 7 feet to 22 feet tall. It can weigh up to 1,800 pounds. And they don't like human beings. Not here, not anywhere. They were the very first to chart it. They were also the very first to actually have a small colony here 809 million years ago. Now, one of the very first colonies or places that was colonized on the planet is North America, what we now call the United States. There are approximately, today, 1,833 of these reptilians still existing inside the planet. They have lived here for thousands of years. They live thousands of years. Their bodies are not like ours. They live anywhere from 100 to 200 miles beneath the surface. This is where they are, and it's all over. The planet is honeycombed with tunnels and caverns. There are approximately 18,000 what we know as grays between here and our moon, from underneath the surface of the planet and the moon. Now, the grays. The grays originally came from Zeta Reticuli 2. I'm giving you the Andromedan perspective. I'm not here to challenge anybody else's information. I'm here to tell you their perspective. The grays came from Zeta Reticuli 2. They left there 892,000 years ago. They got trapped in a war called the Orion War, which lasted 600,000 years. It was a galactic war between reptilian forces and human beings. What happened was they were captured by a group in Orion, the constellation of Orion, which is Rigel, Beltrax, Ursa Major, Ursa Minor. They were genetically altered there. Many of the females of their species were killed, so they could not reproduce, so they could control the race. They also genetically altered them so that their sexual organs would become atrophied, and eventually they just wouldn't be there because they weren't being used. Now, the Greys, at the same time this was going on, decided that the emotional part of themselves, of their personality, was their weakest link. So they literally bred or thought out the emotional part of their bodies, of their character. Which is why they have no emotion. They're robots. Today, there are approximately 2,100 actual Greys, actual physical Greys, that have a soul, that are part of the original race, the lineage of the original race, in our solar system. All the rest, virtually every single one that are doing the abductions on people, are clones. They're robots. They're not. They don't have an essence. They don't have a soul in them. They're robots. Does everybody follow me so far? Okay. The Greys have a problem. They're dying. This is why they basically are here. Now we, as a planetary race, offer them a great opportunity to possibly save their race.
A cell extraction team. And that I was at least going to get my ass beat, if not killed. They were outside the cell for a couple minutes. They left for maybe 3 or 4 minutes, and they came back up to the cell, and I heard the keys outside the door, and I thought to myself, all right, here they come, right? And I reached down, and I grabbed the foot of my bed, and I pulled it back up over myself to where I had the mattress on top of me. And they opened the door, and I expected a bunch of correctional officers to come pouring through the door, and they all stepped back out of the way like there was something dangerous they were watching out for. And this thing walked into my room, and it was about 4 feet tall. It had really, really translucent skin, and it was segmented, all of its skin on its arm and everything. I could see its veins through its arm, through its skin. And as soon as I saw the glint of light in its eye, I could feel it grab a hold of my mind, and it said, "Fear me like you have never feared anything before." And it started manipulating my emotional control centers, and it was just like on Independence Day. You've seen the movie Independence Day, where the aliens get a hold of the dude and they speak through him. And every question that came to my mind was instantly an answer appeared. And I asked, "Why are you doing this?" And it came to my mind that they're doing it for genetic material. They're coming back, not from another place, but from another time. That in their time, we have crushed and damaged our world so badly that just basic genetic material is super rare in their existence, in their realm of existence. Where are you from? It said that they're from here. They're not from another place. That the nearest, they know about the next nearest intelligent race that has the ability to commute between solar systems, and that the next intelligent civilization that has that capacity is at least 100 light years away. I said, "Why are you doing this?" They said, "Genetic material. That we are currently wiping out our planet to the point that in their time, all they have left is a fucking bare existence with a limited amount of genetic material to choose from to propagate food, to propagate living animals, to propagate anything." I had the question come to my mind about why the government, right? And it immediately said, they're into it. They let them do what they want, so the rest of us aren't running around like chickens with their heads cut off. The government lets them do whatever they want, because the government does not want the average citizens to know what is happening, what is really happening with great aliens. I asked, why does the government let you do this? And then they said that the government lets us do this because they don't have any choice. I asked, why are the correctional officers in this facility working with you? And it said very plainly that they don't want to be where I am. And I was up on the top bunk in a prison cell. And this thing told me, I said, "How are you doing this? How are you making me feel this level of fear?" And it said it was using magnetic wave manipulation, refined to a degree that it could affect individual thoughts, that it could dissect me in 1,000 different ways, erase my memory of it, and replace it with a bad dream, and there was nothing I could do about it. So I was up on top of the top bunk, flopping around, scared to death, trying to get away from this thing. And it came over by my bunk, and I noticed that its eyes did not appear to be... The very first thing I thought when it came into the room was, that thing looks just like what they show on fucking TV. And immediately, soon as it came into the room, it had a hold of my emotional control centers. It had me laughing, it had me crying, it had me trying to force my way through a brick wall to get away from it. It talked about magnetic wave technology as a way of manipulating people's emotions, manipulating matter, manipulating thought processes. That there's a ton of people in our government and in our society that know about them, that just generally want to avoid being, I don't know what to call it, attacked by them like I was being attacked at that moment. They don't want to have their entire psychology turned upside down. And it came right over by the bunk, and I kept saying to myself, this can't be real. This can't be real. This can't be real. This can't be real. And I noticed that it had like a gray-green color to it, almost like a military color that you say to yourself, is that gray or that green? It's really a weird color, almost like camouflage, almost like a translucent camouflage to its skin. But I could see its veins through its skin. I could see the blood moving through its veins in its skin, because its veins would expand a little bit with each pulse. And its skin on its hand and its arm was really segmented. It was really thin, probably about 4 feet tall. It had, the very first thing I thought was, that thing looks just like what they show on TV, because it did. It looked like a gray alien. I noticed that its eye was not really its eye. What we see on TV and in the media as its eye was a lens, but it was a lens that was, they're genetically modified to fit that lens into their face. The thing was definitely accustomed to living in dark environments because it did not like any kind of light going on in the room. And I kept asking, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? And it kept saying, because what you're doing to the planet now has destroyed the world in which we live. It was mad as fuck. It came over by the bunk, and I kept thinking, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And then right when it got right next to the bunk, it was looking up at me out of the corner of its eye, kind of, in a weird way. And I thought to myself, just in the back of my mind, if I can get my hands on that thing, I can kill it. And as soon as I had that thought, it said, oh yeah, you're not going to like this. And then I woke up. And I was sitting up in my bunk, and my cellie was sitting there chopping bell peppers, and he looked over at me and he said, what happened to you? And I said, I just had a really weird dream, the weirdest dream I've ever had in my life. And that's about the story right there. Got any questions?
In front of the house, shouting, Mummy, Mummy, there's a flying saucer. Well, naturally, I just said, come on, don't be stupid. Come in the house. But felt sort of a strange sensation. Wended my way up the side of the house to where we had a pump where we used to get all our water from, and automatically looked up to see this, all I can describe, this huge Mexican hat. It was stationary, this thing, and it was bright silver in colour, and it had a dome. It was tilted to sort of, I could see the occupants in it.
You saw people in it?
I saw people in it. There were 2 people in there. These people were beautiful people. That's the only way I can describe them. They had long golden hair, like a page boy bob, just like the old kings. You used to see photographs of the old kings. And the colour of the hair was golden. Now, I was really...
What were they dressed in?
They had a sort of a polo neck jumper affair, like a ski top suit, in pale blue. Now, these people weren't sat behind, one behind the other. They were sat together, but this, whatever it was tilted so that I could see them and they could see me.
Were you looking at them through windows, through portholes? Or
no, not portholes. It was just sort of like a cockpit, I suppose, that had this perspex or glass or whatever it was. They could see me anyway, and I could see them. And they had beautiful faces. I shall never forget their faces as long as I live. Their foreheads seemed to be a bit larger than, you know, the bottom of their faces as normal people you would expect to see. But maybe this was just whatever they had round their heads, which was like a transparent fishbowl. And they just looked, and I was absolutely paralytic with fear. I couldn't move, although my mind was ticking over. And they looked so sympathetic that I was just mesmerised for what seemed to be, ages, but it could have only been seconds. And I turned to sort of look down at the boys, was unaware that they were with me because I was so absorbed. And the next thing, I looked up and it was gone.
How low had it been?
It had been the height, I couldn't tell you. But the house that you've seen, it was just on top of the roof. It was hovering on top of the roof.
How big was it compared with the size of the house?
It swallowed the whole circumference of the roof. I couldn't see, the roof was completely blotted out. The chimneys I couldn't see. All I could see was this massive object that I described as like a Mexican hat without the bubbles.
And then it flew away sideways or upwards?
No, I didn't see. I just looked up and it had gone. But I assume it went straight up, because for a short while after in the sky I looked around and I said to my two boys, "Where can you see anything? Can you see anything?" And they said, "There it is, Mum," and they pointed up, and I watched it. It was just like a little cotton meal in the sky, and it circled us 3 times. It went round 3 times, and then it just shut off, and that was it. When I started to analyse myself afterwards, I feared that I might have had an hallucination, but then I knew I hadn't had, because my sons were so sure about what they'd seen and what I'd seen. And it went through my mind that it was a secret weapon from Russia, and then I thought, well, it can't be that, because if they had something like that, they wouldn't need to fear anybody or anything.
Were you scared by it? Did you run indoors?
Oh, I was petrified. I couldn't move. I couldn't move a muscle. I was paralyzed with fear. But now I wouldn't be. Because now, when I look back, you know, I think, what an amazing thing to have happened, and for me to have seen it.
And when your husband came home, where were you?
Well, when my husband came home from the office, I was locked in the house with my children, under a big kitchen table that we were using.
Under the table?
Under the table, yes. It's funny now when I look back, you know, it sounds absolutely ridiculous, but this is the truth. This happened.
In 2002, you were called into a very remote section of Afghanistan because a patrol had basically gone missing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Well, villages around
for miles.
Right. Like very remote. Yeah, very remote. So we flew in. To about 4 kilometers. We're hiking through the same area where they were supposed to make one of their checkpoints, you know, one of their relics. And before we left, there was all kinds of what happened with the ambush. That was even odd because at point of ambush, you need to call for maybe close air support, something, okay? There was no calls made. You just off the grid. So we're coming down a mountainside, and it was a nice path, goat path. As we bent around this corner, you could see this opening of the cave. There's a cave as we're coming around. And then I see there's a lot of rocks, which is another oddity, and then bone matter. When I'm not close enough to identify what kind of bones, but I did see something I knew was a piece of our communications equipment. So instantly, we're thinking ambush, maybe animal, you know, could be anything. And there was enough room in front of this cave, but it had a sheer drop-off. But there was enough room that we actually got into a decent dispersal in case of ambush.
You see something coming out of the cave, and it's moving with a speed and agility that catches you off guard.
Everybody. And he comes out. It was a man at least 12 to 15 feet in height. This is a monster. Red beard, then his hair was long past the shoulder, a scarlet red, and Dan runs at him and starts shooting pro columns into the reality. As it was
so now your training is kicking.
Oh yeah,
okay.
Muscle memory, complete muscle memory. While Dan is moving at him, another bro of mine's laying down fire, and I start firing. He skewers Dave. He's now got him on this pike. It went 2. And he's still got him, and he's coming after more. We all just clicked in. I don't know what it was, but I remember we're all like, shoot him in the face, shoot him in the face. And all weapons components were in force. We had 308s. and we had Sarah's distance. This is sounding longer than it took. We're talking 30 seconds. Dead. Okay. And why is a good man, probably one of the best men I know, now dead. Before I'd left, they were already starting what they call a 9-line, which is a medevac request. They're sending out a medevac request, then all of a sudden it's not a medevac request. All of a sudden we had a helicopter show up because, like I told you, it was a large precipice and a sheer drop. So the helicopter just came up from the drop. They had dropped netting, which is like cargo netting. It's like squares. We were told we had to bundle him up. Can we get another bigger helicopter? But it's almost like a Jolly Green Giant used to look back in the day that could get, through this area. Because the mountains, you gotta remember, Chinooks could only go in certain places because they had enough lift. And so we got him on there. Thing was too big. We couldn't move it. It smelled worse than a skunk. A corpse that's been around for a while.
Really foul.
Oh, it was like a combination because of the, how do you put that, the persistence of a skunk smell. But once the helicopter came in, dropped its little hook, and off he goes. The communication was sent out. We had a very large possible human creature.
There you are in the hills of Afghanistan. How many troop members are you with?
We had 6 on my crew. When we say hills of Afghanistan, for us, we did not fly into the wilderness. We actually flew into a base. I guess this thing was transloaded out of the mountains by a CH-47. What I could see that it did have its 6 fingers. I remember taking my foot up and placing it up next to its foot, and it was extremely large. We estimated at about 12 feet, give or take. What I can tell you is the weight of the thing. Basically, it was approximately 1,500 pounds what was getting on the aircraft. Now, if you take away the pallet weight and all the rigging that we had to hold this thing down, we figured as around 1,100 pounds.
Of course we're upset. That's a given. Okay. We lost a very good guy. But add to that, you're discussing something that even in our after action report, they're saying rewrite it. And we had to rewrite it the way they wanted.
How many fingers?
6. Oh, six toes.
6 toes.
And the nails were weird because if you see somebody that ever has, I don't know what it's called, but
like a fungus on
their nails, how they get pointy and they're like gnarly. That's what they look like.
Now, family, before
I've been flying for a little over 24 years now, and I've never seen anything like that before.
The pilot spotted something that stayed within line of sight for a full 2 minutes. One passenger, a government engineer, said that what they saw was definitely a craft under intelligent control.
We're cruising at 21,000 feet, and we first sighted it in a position about there, coming across, I would say, about a 45-degree angle to our flight path. And you could see a trail, sort of like a jet trail. And as it got a little bit closer, we could see sort of a fog going back with this vapor trail. Well, it appeared cigar shape, only pointed on both ends, as though it could have been a saucer, of course, but it was definitely pointed on both ends. You could see that much of it. So he had to be moving 3,000 miles an hour, probably, down at that altitude. Pretty hard to do with any equipment on Earth that I know of. We descended down to our level and went on by on the right side, and it's difficult to say how far away because you don't know the size of the thing. However, it appeared to us about 3/4 of a mile to a mile, and we could see a row of windows down the side, oval-shaped windows, and also when you got a beam of us, when this bright light was no longer in our eyes, then you could see lights on top, lights below, and this fog all over the whole thing, sort of as though it was creating its own vapor from the speed. We turned around behind it to see if we could see it again, and I think I also didn't like the idea of it coming in behind us or something. And as we turned behind it, we were sort of fogged right in. And we climbed up another 2,000 feet to try and get a look at him. He just disappeared. And we couldn't get out on the radio. I have a feeling that our radio was blanked by this thing passing us. Three of us were